Hi, welcome back to Module 5. In Module 5 we're going to be looking at the man overboard procedure again. I know we've looked at this before in our Level 1 course, but if you think about cruising, the dream surely is to go to an island where there's no crowd. And if we're going away from the city, we're moving away from people that can help us. In a situation where someone has fallen off the boat, we need to be able to go and pick them up. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to make sure all of our crew, our family are safe when we go cruising. So let's take another look at the man overboard procedure. Having someone in the water is a horrible situation for any skipper of a boat. It does put a lot of pressure on us. You know, the person will die if we don't go and pick them up, if we aren't able to rescue them. So that's a huge pressure to have. Knowing this procedure, practicing this procedure, training for this event will mean that you're very well prepared and you'll just be able to click into a really super professional mode and just go and get this job done and pick them up and get them back on board. So let's just remind ourselves of the wind angles that we can sail in and how best to approach someone that's in the water. So as we can see this vessel from the top of the screen sailing downwind, that boat can sail straight towards the person that's in the water, but it can't stop. So that cannot be a successful rescue because while they can run the person down, they aren't able to stop and pick up the pieces. You cannot pick someone up if you're sailing downwind. We need to be downwind of the person to be able to stop, because we're going to have to sail upwind to get the boat stationary. If we're directly downwind of them, we won't be able to make any progress forwards unless we've got our motor running. And this could well be a successful pickup with that boat heading from the middle of the screen up to the person in the water if they have their motor running. We wouldn't be able to sail that way. And in a man overboard situation, if we've got a perfectly good motor, I would be thinking that we would be a bit silly if we didn't use that. If our sails are up, we do need to consider the sails. Having them flap like that, where they're not creating any power, all they're doing is slowing the boat down. We might need a few more revs to get up there, but we will be able to drive up to the person. Of course, if that propeller's going round, we need to be careful with that and make sure they don't end up having their legs or arms anywhere near that propeller. So that zone there is an area that we can't sail to the person, but we can drive the boat up with the motor. If we come in on a beam reach, we'll get there really fast, but it's probably unlikely that we're going to be able to slow down and stop. We're just going to be carrying too much speed, and we probably won't be able to ease the sails out far enough to get rid of that power in our sails. So again, we can get there on a reach, but we won't be able to stop. So don't approach on a beam reach. In these next two positions, I like to refer to those as the Goldilocks approach, in that it's not too high and it's not too low of an approach. We've got a little bit more height that we can get if we need it. And we can also go down a little bit without increasing the speed too much. And that will give us some options. You know, if the wind shifts or if we misjudge it, we've got a little bit more height that we can get. We can point a little bit higher. If we find ourselves reaching in from this right-hand side, well, to get the boat to slow down and get rid of that speed, if we did a bear away, we could get into that Goldilocks zone and then approach from there, and we would be able to stop at that point. If we find ourselves head to wind with our sails flapping, like this boat in the bottom left-hand corner, just starting to luff the sails, so we're not going to be able to sail there. We're going to lose speed and slow down. Again, if they did a bear away, I said, okay, this approach isn't going to work. We're going to bear away, and we come across so much so that when we tack, we can approach in that Goldilocks zone again. So they're the angles that we can approach the person in the water. We need to be downwind of the person to get up to them and stop. If we come in at an angle where we can't stop, then that's still not going to be a successful pickup. We do need to stop when we get to the person. Now, I did say that we needed to be below the person that's in the water, and that's not necessarily true, because the heave to method would be my go-to method of picking somebody up that was in the water. So let's imagine that I'm sailing upwind and someone falls off the back of the boat. All I need to do is tack without easing the jib. So the jib is sheeted on the wrong side of the boat. That's a bit like jamming the handbrake on. The boat will stop very quickly. As long as I keep the front of the boat pointed into wind, the wind will slowly push us backwards. And that is a really nice way of getting back to the person that's in the water. There's not a lot of sailing in that. One tack, leave the jib sheets as they are, and allow the wind to blow us down towards the person. Now, sometimes we might have a little bit of motion forwards or backwards, and I just need to use the engine to hold the position between the person in the water and the wind. So I'm not reversing down to the person, I'm just trying to use the motor to make sure that we're going to connect when the wind blows us downwind. That would be my preferred way of picking somebody up. The sails aren't flapping, it's nice and controlled, and the wind can blow us downwind quite fast. So it's a quick way of picking somebody up. Of course, once we get to the person, we need to get them back on board. And someone that's very heavy with wet clothes is going to be difficult to pick up. So what equipment do we have on the vessel that we can use? And we have lots of equipment, don't we? We're quite often hauling heavy things to the top of our mast and using winches. So throwing a rope to someone, using a halyard and a winch, using the swimming platform, are all ways that we can get the person on the boat. But once we've got to them, we will need to figure out a way of lifting them or helping them back onto the boat. It might be that we need to put a swimmer into the water. Now, if someone gets off the boat, even if voluntarily step in, we have two people in the water. So that's two people that are in danger. We really need for the person that's getting in the water to swim over to them to have a rope tied to them and tied to the boat. The boat won't be stationary, and it'll be very difficult to get back to the boat if there's any distance between the boat and the swimmer. So unless we want to lose two people, one person definitely needs to be tied to the boat. When that swimmer gets to the person that's in the water, the man overboard, we can use the rope to pull us back to the boat. Now, a situation that came up while I was doing some private coaching was this nice couple had bought a really nice boat, and it was perfectly set up for them to go cruising on, and it had a small self-tacking jib. Now, I don't have any problems with small self-tacking jibs. I think they're a great idea. But one thing you can't do with a small self-tacking jib is to heave to, because that head sail needs to be held on the wrong side of the boat. And by the very nature of a self-tacking jib, the wind just blows the jib through onto the side that it should be on for sailing. But we can still go head to wind, and we can stop the boat by going head to wind. And if we're at a slight angle, then the boom will be out the way, and when the sail is flapping, it won't be banging us on the head. Stopping the boat will give us the opportunity to assess the situation. It may be that we're close enough to throw a rope to the person that's in the water and retrieve them that way. And that could well be the quickest way to get them back on board. It may be that we could start the motor and just reverse our way downwind. The wind will be pushing us downwind as well. The drag in the sails with them flapping will make the boat go downwind. And if we put the motor on, we should be able to just speed that up a little bit, very gently in reverse. So often yachts don't like reversing. They want to go forwards, almost like a wheel on a shopping trolley that only really goes forward. So yes, you can reverse a boat, but it's not going to want to reverse very quickly. So we're going to use the engine to help us to make that a little bit faster, but don't rush, because we might find that the rudder wants to spin round on us and then we lose control of it. So we're gently going to go back with the motor. If that fails and stopping the boat hasn't worked, we're going to have to get into the full figure of 8 man overboard procedure. So if we start here with sailing upwind and someone falling in the water, we ideally want to stop sailing upwind. We don't want to sail upwind any further, so we just want to sail on a reach. And we're sailing away from the person, which is really hard to do, but we need to create a space between us and them so that we can do 1.5 tacks. The first tack is going to be a big tack, followed by a bear away and sailing downwind. As we're sailing downwind, rolling up the head sail might be a good idea if it's on a roller furler, because then we've just got the main sail to deal with and that would be easier. When we get downwind of the person, and we can use the waves to judge that, does the wave hit them before it hits us? And in this position, the wave will be hitting them before it hits us, so we can start thinking about turning towards them. And we want to approach not on a close hauled course, but on a close reach. As we approach, we want to monitor the angle that we're able to sail, monitor our speed, and gently get there. Yes, we want to get there fast, but we also need to be able to stop. Now, in this situation, I've drawn this slide, so we're stopping the boat to leeward of the person that's in the water. Now, that may well work, and it's the way that we do it on this course. The reason why we pick up the life jacket that we use for the man overboard drills on the windward side of the boat is because the boom is out of the way and it's not going to hurt anybody. In reality, if there's any wave action, we're probably going to be wanting to stop our sailing boat on the windward side of the person that's in the water. That would be a more successful pickup in practice if we are stopping the boat on the windward side of them and using the wind to drift down towards them. So here we have some important things to remember about the man overboard recovery procedure. Absolutely, we do not need to jibe. We're going to do that big tack to turn round, so a granny tack. There's no need to jibe. Jibing is a more difficult manoeuvre. We're going to be performing this jibe with less crew than we started off sailing the boat with, so it might be quite difficult to do, maybe if we're sailing single-handed or if we're used to sailing the boat with 4 people and now we've only got 3 people on board. So we want to avoid jibing. The main reason for that is that often people are focused on the person that's in the water and they've stopped sailing the boat. They're not thinking about sailing the boat. And even if you shout jibe, they're not necessarily going to be thinking that the boom is going to hit them. And the reality of jibing in a man overboard situation is that it often leads to other people being injured, and we need to minimize the number of injuries. Having one person needs rescuing is more than enough. Now, dropping the sails. If you can drop the sails quickly without having ropes in the water, then yeah, why not? Go ahead and do that. Maybe with your head sail, it furls on the forestay and you can roll that up quite quickly. Yeah, why not? Let's get rid of the head sail. With the main sail, if you open the clutch and it drops in a bag, then yeah, why not? If you're going to drop the sails and they're all going to be on the deck and the boat's going to be a mess, then that can lead to other problems. If it's going to take a long time to drop the sails, don't bother, just leave them up and do it under sail. You'll get the person on board quicker if you don't have to tidy everything up. And do bear in mind that any rope in the water is likely to go through the propeller. It will just happens quite frequently. So probably the most important thing is don't panic. With practice, this can be completed in 2 or 3 minutes. So first attempt fails, there's 3 minutes gone. Second attempt, 6 minutes. Third attempt, 9 minutes. Fourth attempt, 12 minutes. Fifth attempt, 15 minutes. They're barely wet at this point. Now, of course, if someone's not wearing a life jacket and they're in full wet weather gear, their ability to tread water will be quite limited. So getting back to them quite fast will be important. However, if someone's wearing a life jacket, and if you have a policy that if you're sailing and you're underway, you're always wearing a life jacket, that will take a lot of pressure off the helmsperson, because then they won't have a problem with swimming. They're going to be floating. You can take your time, you can think about what you're doing. Nobody on board is going to get injured because you're rushing and not thinking about what you're doing. You can quietly and calmly, professionally, just get this done. Stop the boat, reverse it down, pick them up. That will probably work if you're calm and thinking about what you're doing. If it doesn't work, no need to panic. You know what to do. Straight into the figure of 8. Sail away from them, do your turn, get downwind, and then start approaching from downwind of them and stop the boat next to them. You can do this. It takes a bit of practice. And the top tip, every time your hat blows off, just do the man overboard drill. It happens at random times. You spend less money on hats, there's less pollution in the sea, and you get to practice the man overboard drill. Hats tend to float for 2 or 3 minutes, so if you can rescue a hat, you can rescue someone that's in the water. So well done for making it to the end of Module 5. This is the last module in the Level 2 cruising course to Kawau. I very much hope you enjoy the practical part of this course and your weekend in Kawau. I'd like to thank Annalise and Rick for helping me with the theory content for this course, and also to Dr. Kongnui Sim for helping put the learning portal together. Without their help, this would have been very difficult. So, enjoy the trip to Kawau, and I look forward to seeing you.